Some people think a wedding is a gift you give your guests. This woman thought it was a debt they owed her. And when she insulted the wrong man's wife after 3 exhausting days of bending over backwards for her big event, she had no idea she just signed herself up for years of the most polite, plausibly deniable psychological warfare the internet has ever celebrated. Today's story comes from r/pettyrevenge, and it's one of the highest voted of all time. Here's what happened. So our narrator's wife has a friend who got married a couple of years back. Now when I say got married, I don't mean a single ceremony, a nice reception, maybe a little dancing, everybody goes home happy. No, this woman designed a 3-day event, 3 full days, multiple meals, 2 separate ceremonies. And here's the detail that really sets the tone for everything that follows. Each of those occasions came with its own dress code. Let that sink in for a moment. Not one dress code, not a general guideline of smart casual throughout. Different dress codes, plural. For each separate component of this multi-day matrimonial marathon she had constructed and expected everyone in her life to enthusiastically participate in. Now our narrator and his wife are, by his own admission, not party people. They're not the types who thrive on 3 days of social performance and outfit changes and coordinating schedules around someone else's increasingly elaborate vision of what their wedding weekend should look like. But they love this woman, or at least his wife does, and so they show up. They commit. They participate. Because that's what you do for the people in your life, even when it's inconvenient, even when it costs you something. And it does cost them, right from the very first evening. Day 1 kicks off with a dinner. Not an early dinner, not a reasonable 6 or 7 o'clock situation where you eat, you celebrate, you get home at a decent hour. This dinner starts at 9 o'clock at night, 9 in the evening on a weekday. The meal itself runs 3 hours, which means by the time the last course is cleared and the toasts are done, it's midnight. And then the bride informs everyone that they're going dancing, not suggests, not proposes, forces, as our narrator puts it. Everyone is expected to carry on into the night at some dancing venue. Now our narrator and his wife draw a line here, a completely reasonable line, and tell her they can't go dancing. It's a weekday. They have lives. They have presumably jobs and obligations and the biological need for sleep that most adults contend with. They joined for the 3-hour dinner that started at 9, which is already a significant ask on a work night. They're tapping out before the after party. That is a fair and adult decision. Except the bride doesn't quite see it that way. Very next day at the brunch, because of course there's a brunch on day 2, the bride makes a point of telling everyone how absolutely incredible the dancing was, how much fun they all had, how energetic and joyful and unforgettable it was. And then, with what our narrator describes as a pointed delivery, she mentions that even old people went. Even children stayed up and danced, the implication hanging in the air like smoke. You too, healthy adults with no apparent infirmity, couldn't manage it. Our narrator brushes it off. He smiles. He lets it go, because what do? You're at the woman's wedding weekend. You're not going to start a scene at the day 2 brunch over a comment about elderly relatives and children having more stamina than you did on a Tuesday night. You swallow it and you move on. And move on they do, straight into day 2's schedule, which contains not 1 but 2 separate ceremonies. So after the brunch and the pointed commentary about the dancing they didn't attend, they then sit through ceremony 1 and then ceremony 2. 2 ceremonies, in what were presumably 2 different outfits, because again, each occasion has its own dress code, and our narrator has already noted that by the time this whole weekend concludes, they will have dressed up 4 separate times. Now here's where it gets good. Or rather, here's where the seeds of everything that follows get planted. Day 3 arrives, the final morning. There's one more brunch, and then mercifully this whole production will be over. Our narrator and his wife get up early. They pull together their 4th outfits of the weekend. His wife sits down and does her hair and makeup for the 4th time in 3 days, 4th time. Think about what that means in terms of time and effort and energy. And this is after 2 ceremonies, a late-night dinner, multiple brunches, and whatever emotional labor comes with spending an entire extended weekend performing joy and celebration for someone else. She does her hair and makeup for the 4th time, and they go. They arrive at the brunch, the bride greets them, and here is the moment that changes everything. The bride looks at our narrator's wife, and with what he describes as a very specific tone in her voice, a judgmental, condescending, dismissive tone, she says, "Oh, hi, babe. Wow, you look comfy." Comfy. That's the word she chose. That pause before it. That ellipsis in the delivery. The little note of surprise or perhaps disappointment. As if this woman, who had spent 3 days rotating through different looks to honor her friend's wedding weekend, who had done her hair and makeup 4 times in 72 hours, who had gotten up early on the final morning of an exhausting multi-day event to show up and show up properly, as if she had somehow come up short, as if she had failed to clear the bar. Our narrator is very clear that this was bullshit, his word, and I think most reasonable people reading this would agree with him. The comment was unnecessary. It was unkind. It was the kind of thing you say when you want to make someone feel small while maintaining the thin veneer of complimenting them. It's the passive-aggressive knife dressed up as a throwaway observation. His wife, being a gracious and generous person, tries to give the bride the benefit of the doubt. She chalks the comment up to wedding stress. 3 days of high-stakes social performance and emotional intensity and the pressure of orchestrating this elaborate event. Maybe it just got to her. Maybe she wasn't herself. Maybe she didn't even realize how the comment landed. His wife brushes it off. Our narrator does not brush it off. Our narrator has, in that moment, arrived at a quiet and absolute conclusion. This woman is simply an asshole, not stressed, not distracted, not temporarily out of character, an asshole. And he has decided calmly, deliberately, with the patient resolve of a man who plays the long game, that he will repay her for this. Not dramatically, not with a confrontation, not with anything that could be called an outburst or an incident. Slowly, over years. And this is where the story becomes something truly special. Because most of us, when we feel that flash of protectiveness over someone we love being treated badly, either act on it immediately in ways we might regret, or we swallow it entirely and let it fester. Our narrator has found a third option, a creative option, a masterclass in what the internet has taken to calling the backhanded compliment, deployed with surgical precision over an extended timeline against someone who probably considers herself quite good at social dynamics. Let's go through the arsenal, because each one is worth savoring. The first weapon in his collection is this. I love how you don't care about vanity. Just go with that natural look and who cares what people think. Now read that again slowly and appreciate the architecture of it. On the surface, it sounds like admiration. It sounds like he's praising her for being confident and low maintenance and comfortable in her own skin. But underneath that surface, underneath the warm delivery and the apparently friendly sentiment, is a very specific implication. That her look, whatever she's wearing or however she's presented herself, reads as not trying, as natural in a way that is perhaps not entirely intentional. As someone who has opted out of effort, rather than someone who is radiating effortless confidence. And here's the thing about this compliment specifically. The bride's original sin was using the word comfy to suggest that our narrator's wife wasn't trying hard enough. She was, in that moment, positioning herself as the standard-bearer of appropriate effort and presentation. She was implicitly saying, I care about how things look, and you seem not to. Now our narrator is reflecting that exact energy back at her. He is suggesting, with a smile on his face and warmth in his voice, that she is the one who appears not to care, that she is the one who reads as comfortable rather than polished. He has taken her weapon and turned it around. It's elegant, it really is. The second instrument he's been deploying is, of course, a direct callback to the original comment. You look super comfy. He's used variations of this one multiple times. And the beauty of this particular callback is that it only lands the way it's intended to land if she already knows, somewhere in the back of her mind, that the word comfy carries a specific meaning between them. If she remembers saying it to his wife on that final morning of the wedding weekend. If she knows what it implies. Which means every time he says it to her, she has to make a choice. She can let it go, in which case she's absorbing the comment without responding, which probably doesn't feel great. She can laugh it off, in which case she's pretending it doesn't have a subtext she might actually be aware of. Or she can say something, she can acknowledge that the word feels loaded, that it feels pointed. And in doing so, she has to essentially confess that she knows why it might be aimed at her. She has to admit to the original comment and everything it implied. There is no clean exit from this one. Every option available to her is slightly uncomfortable. And he just keeps serving it up, variation after variation, warm smile presumably in place, giving her a fresh opportunity to sit with that discomfort every single time. Now here's where it gets even better, because the third compliment he's developed is a different kind of blade. This one isn't about appearance at all. This one is about character. He tells her, I wish I could have your attitude with arriving whenever, but I always have to show up on time for things. Oh, this one is something else. Again, on the surface, admiration. He's expressing what sounds like genuine envy of her relaxed relationship with time. What a freeing way to move through the world, unbothered by clocks and schedules and the social contract that requires people to appear when they said they would appear. What a lovely quality. Except what he's actually saying is, you're late. You show up late and you treat that as though it's acceptable, and I am using the word attitude, in the way that makes it clear I find this to be a character trait rather than an endearing quirk. He's wrapping a pointed observation about her reliability and her consideration of other people's time in the language of wistful admiration. He wishes he could be like that. He, unfortunately, is burdened with basic courtesy. You can feel the gears turning, and our narrator himself points this out, which is the most delicious part of the whole post. He describes watching her in these moments, seeing her try to work out whether she's being praised or critiqued, whether to say thank you or to push back, whether the comment was loaded or innocent. She is doing real-time social calculus trying to determine if she should be pleased or offended, and she genuinely cannot figure it out. That uncertainty, that slight disorientation is the entire point. He's not trying to devastate her. He's not trying to start a fight. He's not trying to make her cry or cause a scene or even necessarily make her feel definitively bad. He is simply making sure that every interaction she has with him contains just a small amount of sand in the gears, a minor friction, a tiny question mark she can't quite resolve. He is the human equivalent of a pebble in your shoe, not enough to stop you walking, just enough to remind you with every step that something is not quite right. And he has committed to doing this indefinitely, not for a month, not until he feels like he's made his point, until she is no longer in their lives or one of them dies. Those are the terms he has set for himself. This is a long game measured in years, possibly decades, and he is playing it with total patience and absolute consistency. Let's spend a moment on the structure of what he's actually doing, because I think it deserves a little appreciation beyond just the individual compliments. The genius of the approach is that it is entirely deniable. If she ever confronted him, if she ever said, "I feel like your compliments aren't actually compliments," he has complete cover. He was being nice. He admires her natural look. He genuinely wishes he shared her relaxed relationship with timeliness. He's just an enthusiastic and perhaps slightly effusive person who expresses himself warmly. What could she possibly object to? What specific thing could she point to and say, "That was mean"? And this is the mirror image of what she did to his wife. "You look comfy" is, on the face of it, not an insult. It is a perfectly acceptable thing to say to someone. It is only an insult given the context, the tone, the pause before it, the subtext of the entire 3-day event and the expectation of effort and the implication that she had fallen short. Just as his wife could not easily respond to the original comment, because what do you say? "Are you calling me underdressed?" The bride cannot easily respond to his ongoing campaign. The architecture is the same. He has studied her technique and applied it back at her with interest. There's also something worth noting about who he's doing this for. He doesn't seem to be doing it primarily to make himself feel better, although I suspect it does contribute to that. He's not venting or lashing out or processing frustration in real time. He's doing it as an act of loyalty. His wife wanted to give her friend the benefit of the doubt, wanted to chalk it up to stress, wanted to maintain the relationship and not make things difficult. And he respected that. He didn't blow things up on her behalf. He didn't confront the bride at the brunch or make the final day of the wedding weekend into something ugly. He let his wife handle it the way she wanted to handle it. But privately, he decided that someone who talks to his wife like that doesn't get to walk away entirely clean. Not because he wants drama, not because he can't let things go, but because there's a principle at stake. You don't get to treat the people he loves as though they've failed some standard of presentation after they've spent 3 days and 4 outfit changes showing up for you, and then face zero consequence at all. The consequence just comes slowly, subtly, wrapped in kind words and delivered with a smile. It's protective. In a strange and very petty way, it is an act of care. Now, following the original post blowing up on the internet, and our narrator is appropriately surprised by this, nodding with some understandable glee that it got way more attention than he expected. He gets something he wasn't anticipating, a crowdsourced arsenal. The comments section, which on Reddit can be a fairly chaotic place, apparently rose to the occasion in spectacular fashion. People flooded in with their own suggested additions to the rotation. Our narrator, to his enormous credit, spent an hour converting the best of them into a note on his phone. A dedicated, organized, curated note on his phone containing backhanded compliments for use against one specific woman at future social gatherings. This is the detail that takes the whole thing into a different category of commitment. This is not an impulsive response. This is not something said in a heated moment and then forgotten. This is a man who sat down, read through potentially hundreds of suggestions, evaluated them for quality and applicability, and built himself a reference document. He prepared. He organized. He archived the community's contributions so that no good material would be wasted. And then he said he couldn't wait to see her next. That line, that simple, cheerful, genuinely enthusiastic, Can't wait to see her next. Delivered after describing a year or years of careful, deliberate, perfectly calibrated social warfare, is somehow the funniest and most satisfying sentence in the entire post, because it reframes the whole thing. He's not dreading these interactions. He's not gritting his teeth every time he has to spend time with his wife's difficult friend and smile through it. He is looking forward to it. He has turned an unpleasant obligation into something he finds genuinely enjoyable. She gave him something he didn't have before, a hobby. Now, because this is the internet, and because people are endlessly imaginative when it comes to these things, let me share a few of the types of community-contributed compliments that were presumably making their way into that phone note, drawn from the spirit of what people tend to offer up in threads like these. Our narrator didn't specify all of them in the original post, but the categories tend to run in a few very satisfying directions. There are appearance-based ones in the tradition of comfy and natural look, comments about someone looking so relaxed or having a very lived-in aesthetic, or being admirably resistant to the pressure of conventional beauty standards that most of us feel trapped by. All of which sound, on their surface, like progressivism or body positivity or admiration, but land just a little differently depending on the context. There are punctuality and reliability ones in the tradition of the arriving whenever comment. Things like noting how someone seems genuinely unbothered by other people's expectations, or how refreshing it is that they don't seem to feel pressure to follow through on every commitment they make. Again, sounds like praise. Isn't quite. There are social ones, observations about someone's unique conversational style, or their ability to make every situation about them, framed as a kind of impressive talent rather than a tiresome habit. The kind of thing that sounds like a compliment until you're driving home and you replay it and you think, wait. And there are the retroactive ones, which are perhaps the most sophisticated category. Comments that reference some prior behavior or event, dressed up in admiration, that only makes sense if the recipient knows what you're actually referring to. These are the ones that require the most history and the most precision, but when they land on a very specific spot. What all of these have in common is the fundamental structure our narrator identified intuitively. Make it deniable, make it targeted, deliver it warmly, and let the discomfort do its work after you've left the room. The best ones are the ones where she's fine in the moment, and then thinks about it in the shower 2 days later. Let's also take a moment to appreciate the setting in which all of this is playing out, because it's not incidental. These are social gatherings, presumably dinners, birthday parties, group outings, the kinds of occasions that his wife's friend group assembles for regularly, because people who organize 3-day weddings with multiple dress codes tend to be people who are fairly invested in their social calendar, which means our narrator has a regular and recurring venue for his work. He's not waiting for some rare opportunity. He has a consistent schedule of occasions at which to appear, be pleasant, and deploy the next item from his phone note. This is also notably happening in a group context. Other people are present, and this is part of what makes the gears-turning observation so rich. She can't even react properly because there are witnesses. If she bristles at "you look comfy," everyone else at the table is going to wonder what her problem is with a kind compliment. If she pushes back on being told she has a refreshingly natural look, she comes across as strangely defensive and vain. The social setting is its own trap, and he chose it deliberately or landed in it fortuitously. Either way, it works. There's a version of this story that could go wrong. There's a timeline where this becomes something a little darker, where the obsession with delivering the perfect backhanded compliment curdles into something that consumes more energy than it's worth, or where it damages his wife's friendships in ways that hurt her. And our narrator seems genuinely aware of this risk, or at least the comments section likely raised it. He's not doing this in front of his wife. He's not making it her problem. He's not conducting a visible campaign that she would have to navigate socially. He's doing it quietly, in the margins of gatherings where she would already be present anyway, in exchanges that look to everyone around them like perfectly normal pleasantries. His wife might not even fully know the extent of it. She might smile watching him chat with her friend and have no idea that every warm word her husband just offered was a precisely targeted instrument of low-grade psychological inconvenience. And honestly, there's something almost admirable about that restraint. He's not making her complicit. He's not asking her to carry any of it. He's just quietly, patiently, cheerfully being the thorn in this woman's side on her behalf. Because here's the thing about what the bride did that I want to return to before we wrap up. She didn't do anything catastrophic. She didn't make a scene. She didn't say anything overtly cruel or do anything that could be pointed to as an obvious, indisputable act of unkindness. She said 2 words with a loaded pause between them. "You look comfy." And that's exactly why it required this specific response. You can't bring a sledgehammer to something that small. If our narrator had confronted her at the brunch, everyone present would have thought he was wildly overreacting. If his wife had said something, she would have been dismissed as oversensitive. The comment was designed to be unanswerable. It exists in a gray zone where the target knows exactly what it means but can't prove it means anything at all. The bride knew what she was doing. She's fluent in this particular language. And now so is he. He has learned to speak it back. He has not only matched her in the language she operates in, he has apparently become quite good at it, good enough that the internet enthusiastically adopted his cause and crowdsourced him an extended vocabulary. He showed up to a knife fight, realized the knife was invisible, went home, spent an hour on the internet, came back with a phone full of invisible knives, and is now the most enthusiastic attendee of every social gathering this woman hosts. This is, it must be said, peak petty revenge. It doesn't involve property damage or public humiliation or legal proceedings or any kind of escalation that would make it into a different subreddit. It is revenge conducted entirely within the bounds of social nicety. It inflicts no measurable harm. It causes no scenes. It produces no evidence. It is just one man, a note on his phone, and a commitment to the bit that he has explicitly extended until death. And the reason it resonated with so many people, the reason it climbed to the top of one of Reddit's most popular storytelling communities, is not just that it's funny, although it is genuinely very funny. It's that it feels just. It feels proportionate in a way that a lot of real-world conflicts never do. The bride committed a specific kind of social offense, the plausibly deniable insult, the cutting observation wrapped in the costume of a compliment, delivered to someone who spent 3 days showing up for her. And she is now receiving forever the exact same thing she gave. Not worse, not more, the same, reflected back at her by someone who apparently has infinite patience and a very good memory. There's a philosophical tradition, maybe a stretch to invoke it here, but let's do it anyway, that talks about giving people a taste of their own medicine not as punishment, but as education. The idea being that sometimes the most effective way to communicate that a behavior is unkind is to return it so precisely that the person on the receiving end finally understands what it felt like to be on the other side. Our narrator probably isn't thinking about it in those terms. He's thinking about that pause before the word comfy and the look on his wife's face and the satisfaction of watching the gears turn. But there's something in what he's doing that gestures toward a kind of justice that formal mechanisms don't always provide. The bride will, presumably, never fully know. That's also part of it. She may spend years slightly uncomfortable around this man without being able to say why, receiving what sound like genuine compliments that leave her feeling vaguely off, never quite able to articulate what it is about his warmth that doesn't sit right. She will never get the full picture. She will never hear the story told from the outside and understand that she has become someone's long-running project. And this is the other possibility, the one that might be even more satisfying, she will know. She will figure it out. She will put it together eventually, maybe after the 10th or 11th you look comfy, maybe when she's going through her own memories of that wedding weekend and the pieces click into place. And in that moment she will have to decide, do I say something? Do I acknowledge this? Do I admit that I know why he's doing this, and in doing so confirm that I understand what I did? And if she does say something, she's done him a favor. She's confirmed the original offense. She's validated everything he suspected about the intent behind, you look comfy. She's handed him the win in the clearest possible terms. He truly cannot lose this one. The note is on his phone. The next gathering is whenever it is. He's already looking forward to it. And somewhere out there, this bride is probably at some social event right now, chatting away, completely unaware that among her husband's friends and her old crowd, there is one man whose calm, pleasant, slightly warm demeanor contains a very organized and lovingly maintained database of specifically tailored things to say to her. What a thing to have built, what a thing to have committed to, what a very, very specific kind of patience. Some acts of unkindness are too small for justice and too deliberate for forgiveness, but they're exactly the right size for this. A lifetime of warm words with cold edges delivered on a smile by someone who will absolutely outlast you. What would you have done in Op's position? Drop a comment, and if you enjoyed this story, hit that subscribe button for more from the Reddit Vault. Thanks for listening.